The Zelrath Dominion's war room was alive with tension, filled with the hushed murmurs of high-ranking officers. Holographic screens flickered, displaying incoming reports from the outer perimeter. A distress signal looped endlessly, garbled and distorted, but the message was clear enough. Human warship detected. It's coming fast. Admiral Vorkov folded his segmented arms, mandibles clicking in irritation. A single warship? His voice dripped with skepticism. They dare approach our fleet alone? Across the chamber, Intelligence Officer Relec tapped on his console, scanning the intercepted transmission. It was a mining outpost that sent this before. He paused, watching in real time as the signal cut off. Silence followed. Before they ceased transmitting, the room dimmed as a tactical overview replaced the chatter. A red marker blinked, creeping closer to the Dominion fleet. The human warship moved with impossible speed, straight toward them, ignoring all hails. They don't even have the numbers, scoffed Fleet Commander Xeron. A suicidal maneuver. Humans are impulsive. Silence settled. Then, Relec exhaled sharply. That's what we always say. A murmur spread. The Dominion had faced humanity before, small skirmishes, inconsequential battles. But each encounter left an uncomfortable truth. Humans fought differently. They did not adhere to the rigid doctrines of interstellar warfare. Where the Zelrath valued brute strength and calculated formations, humans adapted bent rules and wielded a kind of reckless ingenuity that unnerved even the most seasoned tacticians. They are unpredictable, Relec continued. We assume they are primitive because they lack the empire we do. But recall the Quran conflict. A single human strike team infiltrated an entire orbital station, disabled its planetary defenses, and left before anyone realized they were inside. That was an anomaly. Vorkov's voice held firm. A lucky strike. Relec didn't argue. Instead, he switched the display to long-range sensor feeds. The warship's outline sharpened, revealing an angular, predatory design. Black plating, minimal energy signatures, almost as if it consumed the void itself. Then, the readings changed. Energy spikes. Shield harmonics shifting. It's charging something, Relec whispered. Alarms blared. Defense grids locked onto the target, and the fleet scrambled into position. The Zelrath fleet boasted 20 capital ships, 6 dreadnoughts, and over 100 support vessels. Against one, it should have been a laughable fight. But no one was laughing. Final hail, Vorkov growled. Human vessel, you are in restricted space. Identify yourself or be fired upon. Silence. The warship did not slow. It did not respond. It simply continued its approach, a monolith of darkness against the distant red glare of the system's star. Xeron's spines bristled. Arrogant creatures. He turned to the weapons officers. Lock rail batteries. Plasma lances online. If they want to play games, we end this now. Relec hesitated. Something about this didn't feel right. Sir, what if this is a trap? A trap? Vorkov's mandibles twitched in amusement. They are outnumbered 10-1. What strategy could they possibly employ against us? Relec had no answer. The order was given. A wall of plasma surged toward the approaching warship, the combined might of the Dominion fleet's opening salvo. The firestorm illuminated the void, the sheer energy output enough to slag an entire moon. For a moment, it looked like victory. Then, the smoke cleared. The human warship remained, intact, not a scratch. A heavy silence filled the war room. Xeron stepped forward, mandibles clicking rapidly. He rechecked the readings. That's not possible. The warship had no visible shields, no deflection barriers, and yet it had simply ignored the attack. Relec's breath hitched. What are we fighting? Then, for the first time, the human ship responded. A single transmission, audio only, distorted. A voice, calm and hollow, laced with something unnatural. You should have run. Red alerts flashed across every console. Energy spikes surged off the charts. The warship's weapons came online. Plasma alarms screamed as the Zelrath fleet scrambled to react. Officers barked orders. Weapons cycled. Targeting arrays locked on. A full barrage had done nothing. That wasn't possible. No known shielding technology could withstand such an assault without even flickering. Yet, the human warship remained. A black void against the stars, an omen of something far worse than arrogance. Vorka clenched his mandibles. Double the payload. Fire at will. A second wave launched, every battleship unloading their full arsenal. Kinetic rounds, plasma torpedoes, disruption beams. The onslaught was relentless. The sheer force of their combined firepower capable of reducing an entire planet's surface to molten slag. The warship moved, not evasively, not desperately. It shifted deliberate, calculated, between the attacks, as if it anticipated them before they were even fired. The first return shot came without warning. One of the Dominion's dreadnoughts, 3 kilometers of reinforced warplating, ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just an instantaneous void where it had been. The void rippled, then collapsed in on itself. A ship, gone, not destroyed, erased. A horrified silence spread through the fleet. What was that? Relec whispered. No one had an answer. The Dominion had conquered 100 species, fought wars across entire systems. They had never witnessed this. The human warship spoke again. Your tactics are outdated. It advanced. No rush. No need for speed. Just an overwhelming, suffocating presence that forced them back. The Zelrath fleet was disciplined, hardened from centuries of conquest. Yet in that moment, instinct overruled training. They ran, not in a tactical retreat, not in an organized formation. They fled. Vorka slammed his fist against the console. Stop running. Form a defensive line. No one listened. A dozen ships veered off course, some colliding in the chaos. Others activated emergency jump drives, blind warps that could leave them stranded in the void. They did not care. Zuran, once so confident, now trembled. Sir, it wants us to run. As if to confirm his words, the warship's next move shattered the last remnants of Dominion morale. It disabled their engines. Not all at once. One by one. A precise, methodical severing of movement, leaving the fleet drifting. Power flickered. Weapon systems failed. Then came the transmissions. The fleet's own distress calls, now twisted, corrupted. We never stood a chance. It sees everything. Run, run, run. The voices of their own crews. Broadcast across every Dominion frequency, looping, distorting, embedding terror into their neural pathways. This was no battle. This was a statement. The human warship did not fight for survival, for conquest, or even for revenge. It fought because it had already won. The fleet was breaking apart, not from enemy fire, but from fear. Ships that had once stood unshaken in the face of planetary invasions now drifted in disarray. Officers screamed conflicting orders. Some demanded a regroup. Others pleaded for a full retreat. It didn't matter. The warship had already decided for them. The first vessel attempted an emergency warp. Energy surged along its hull as its drive engaged. A split second before it could vanish, the human warship intervened. The Zelrath ship silhouette blurred, then collapsed inward. The jump drive inverted, pulling the vessel into itself. It folded, twisted, then shattered into particles too small to register on any scanner. The remaining fleet froze. No one else dared activate their drives. Vorka gripped the edge of his command console, claws digging into the metal. His mind raced for a countermeasure, for anything that could turn the tide. Nothing came. They were trapped. A desperate plan formed. If escape was impossible, then they would overwhelm the warship with sheer numbers. A full-force kamikaze strike. Ziron's voice shook. We're throwing lives away. They're already dead, Vorka growled. Better to take that thing with us. Across the fleet, the last 24 remaining warships aligned into formation, their hulls glowing with overcharged energy. They would burn their reactors dry, push their engines past critical limits, and drive straight into the warship. They launched. Seconds before impact, the human warship vanished. Not through hyperspace, not through cloaking. It simply ceased to be in front of them. The Dominion fleet overshot, their kamikaze run now aimed at empty space. The sudden absence of their target threw their navigation into chaos. Several collided, tearing through each other in spectacular detonations. Then the warship reappeared behind them. The fleet was now exposed, their backs turned, defenseless. Vorka's throat went dry. The warship fired once, a single narrow beam. It moved slowly, crawling across space, slicing through one Zelrath vessel after another. No explosions, no shockwaves, just clean, precise elimination. One moment, a warship existed. The next, it was nothing. The beam reached the bridge of the Dominion's flagship. Vorka took a final breath. The last thing he heard was the warship's final transmission. This was inevitable. Silence consumed the battlefield. Where once the Dominion fleet had stood, there was now only empty space, the last embers of destroyed warships flickering in the void. The wreckage was minimal, no floating debris fields, no scattered husks. The human warship had erased them with precision. A transmission pulsed through the remains of the system, broadcasting to the Dominion's long-range relays. A message, not to gloat, not to negotiate, but simply to be heard. One ship, one warning, there will not be another. The warship turned, engines flaring as it prepared to leave. It had no reason to stay. The lesson had been taught. The fear had been planted. The Dominion had conquered worlds, enslaved civilizations, crushed rebellions with merciless efficiency. But today, they had been prey. Across the Dominion's vast empire, word spread fast. At first, disbelief. A fleet, one of their strongest, destroyed by a single vessel? Impossible. Some dismissed it as battlefield misinformation, a glitch in reports. Then the footage surfaced, intercepted feeds, desperate last moments from the fleet's own officers. A force they could not fight, a presence they could not understand. Panic set in. Admirals reviewed their defenses. War councils met behind closed doors. Entire strategies were rewritten overnight. What had once been arrogance was now paranoia. But the warship never came back. No more attacks followed. No invasions, no retaliation. That was what unnerved the Dominion the most. Humans, as they understood them, should have pressed the advantage. But they didn't, because they didn't need to. The Dominion had always ruled by fear, believing it to be the ultimate weapon. Now, for the first time in their history, they understood what it was like to be afraid. A single human warship had shattered their invincibility. And the worst part, they had no idea if it would ever return.